Toby, where are you going? You want to be the first robot to fly alone across the Atlantic? He'll be just like Amelia Earhart. She was the first female pilot to fly solo, or alone, across the Atlantic Ocean. What was Amelia Earhart like as a young girl? Amelia Earhart was born in 1897 in Atchison, Kansas. As a kid, Amelia loved to climb trees and catch insects. In the early 1900s, people thought it was fine for boys to run around and get dirty, but it wasn't considered appropriate for girls to do that. Amelia ignored what people thought and had fun on her own adventures. She once built a ramp on top of a tool shed and rode off of it. It was dangerous, and she got in trouble, but she got her first taste of flying. How did Amelia Earhart become a pilot? When she was 23, Earhart took a plane ride that changed her life. She said, "By the time I had gotten 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly." In the 1920s, women were expected to stay home and care for their families. But slowly, women started working jobs outside of their homes. Certain jobs were considered appropriate for women, but being a pilot was not one of them. Still, Earhart worked hard to earn money for flying lessons. She read books about planes and watched barnstormers, who are pilots that perform stunts. She finally saved enough money to take lessons from an aviator named Netta Snook. An aviator is a pilot. Netta Snook was an experienced pilot and the first woman to own her own aviation business. She taught Earhart how to fly. At first, Earhart had a hard time. She even got into a little accident. But she never gave up. Earhart saved up to buy her own plane. It was bright yellow, just like a canary, so that's what she called her plane. Soon, she was breaking flying records. She broke women's records for speed and altitude, or height. In 1927, an aviator named Charles Lindbergh became the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Earhart hoped to be the first woman to do this. How did Amelia Earhart fly across the Atlantic? In 1928, Earhart took off with a small crew. She became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic. But she didn't fly the plane. She was just a passenger. She hoped that one day she'd fly across the Atlantic alone, just like Charles Lindbergh. Just 4 years later, Earhart achieved her goal. She took off in Newfoundland, Canada, flew across the Atlantic Ocean, and landed near Derry, Northern Ireland. The flight took 14 hours and 56 minutes. Earhart became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, and she made headlines all over the country. Soon after, she became the first woman to fly solo from coast to coast, and the first person to fly solo from Oakland, California to Honolulu, Hawaii, and from Los Angeles, California to Mexico City, Mexico. She set more speed and altitude records along the way. Before long, Earhart set her eyes on a new goal. What happened when Earhart tried to fly around the world? In 1937, Earhart and her crew set out to fly around the world. Fred Noonan was Earhart's navigator. A navigator is a person who directs the route of a plane, ship, or other vehicle. During the first part of their trip, there were problems with the plane, so they had to cancel the trip. But Earhart didn't give up. She quickly started planning her second try. Together they began their flight in Florida and made stops in South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. They flew about 22,000 miles, or about 35,000 kilometers, and made it all the way to Papua New Guinea, which is near Australia. Their next stop was to be Howland Island, but Earhart and Noonan never made it. Experts believe that they ran out of fuel and crashed. I'm sad too, Moby. Earhart will always be a hero. Why do we honor Amelia Earhart? Amelia Earhart was a brave aviator who set new records. She was also a role model for kids and adults. A role model is a person who's looked up to and sets examples for others. Even when she faced obstacles, Earhart never gave up. In the 1930s, men and women were not treated equally. Women were often discouraged from getting jobs or even going to college. Amelia Earhart was a determined and independent leader. Throughout her life, Earhart stood up for equal rights for women. She encouraged women to study science and engineering, which were subjects not considered appropriate for women. She inspired women to follow their dreams. She taught us to set goals and never give up, even when there are challenges. Sweet plane, Moby. Good luck on your flight across the Atlantic. You don't know how to fly a plane, do you?